Hello, fourth grade. And the varsity team is almost all juniors and seniors, so it's unbelievable that I made it, Owen said that night at supper. Coach says I won't start, but that's okay. Just being on the team will be enough. Enough to make you very busy every afternoon. I swirled a piece of spaghetti on my plate with my fork. Yes, that's amazing, Mom smiled at me. And Emma had a friend over today. Hey, that's great, Owen said. The happy way he said it annoyed me, like now all my problems were over, and I knew he knew better. Jack was the only one who could come over, I said flatly. When you're done, can you take a photo of me kayaking with your phone? I need it for school. Do we actually have to go out on the water? Could you just be sitting in your kayak? Owen asked. I have homework. No, that would look ridiculous. No one would want to go kayaking with me on the grass. I looked down at my plate. Please, we don't have to go far. Okay. As soon as he finished supper, Owen got the paddles and I got the life jackets. When you're the warden's kids, you always have to follow the rules. It's not that I ever wanted to get in trouble, but I knew there would be extra disappointment if I did. Looking out across the lake, I saw we had it almost to ourselves, with just one canoe gliding along the far shore. Most of the summer people had already gone home, closing up their camps and pulling their dogs out of the water. It was so quiet that I could hear a woodpecker drumming on a tree across the lake. I threw up my flip-flops into the bottom of the kayak. Holding my paddle across the front, I climbed in. Take my phone while I push you off, Owen said. I tucked his phone into my pocket. I love that moment when Owen gives me a shove out past the drop-off and suddenly it's just water under my kayak. I think it must be close to what a bird feels when it lifts off and flies. A quick burst, and then you leave the ground behind you. It's a free feeling, with nothing holding you back. Where do you want to take the photo? Owen asked, paddling up beside me. I want Eagle Island behind me. On maps it has a different name, but Owen and I named it for the big eagle's nest in the tall pine tree at the tip. When the eagles were nesting or had eaglets, we weren't allowed on the island, but the juveniles had flown off weeks ago. We still saw them in the treetops around the lake from time to time, but they were on their own now. Kayaking to Eagle Island would take a little time, too, time that I didn't have to share Owen with anyone else. The lake was almost flat, just a breeze wrinkling the surface. As I paddled, I cut a path through the ripples. A little kingfisher cackled at us, flying low over the waves. He landed on a dead branch that stretched out over the water. As we caught up to him, he flew off again, complaining. Owen was digging his paddle so hard that my arms were getting sore trying to keep up with him. The breeze kept blowing my hair across my nose, and it itched every time. Finally, I gave up and let him get ahead of me. I took his phone from my pocket and shot a photo of him kayaking away from me. Approaching the island, I looked at the empty nest, a big mess of sticks waiting for next year. When the eaglets nested again in late winter, the lake would probably still be a huge field of ice. It's hard to imagine winter in other seasons, but it's a different world out here. Light reflects on the ice and the wind blows strong because there's nothing on the lake to slow it down. It roars against my bedroom windows and whispers through the tiny spaces around the back door. The wind also sweeps the ice clean, so clear and smooth that the ice skates fly over it. Owen and I barely went skating at all last year. I missed shouting and hearing our voices echo out into the middle. I missed how Mom would put the outside light on to tell us when it was time to come back. If we were skating way out in the middle, the light was small, a tiny dot of yellow in the darkening air. Maybe Owen and I would go skating this winter. Soccer would be over by then, or maybe he would sign up for something else at school that he would do without me. But at least now I had Lappy at home to keep me from feeling lonely. If things didn't get better at school, I wondered how long Mom would make me wait before I could go back to homeschooling. Surely before winter came. I didn't like to quit anything, but sometimes Things just didn't work out, and it's better to admit it and try something else. I imagined Ms. Martell spinning her finger. Move on. Okay, give me my phone, Owen said. Then paddle ahead so the island will be in the background. As he shot photos, I smiled, trying to look fun and outdoorsy. I'll email those to you, Owen said. I thought he'd start for home, but he kayaked past me to the island. As I beached my kayak next to his, Owen picked up a small rock and threw it. Beat that. I picked up a rock and threw it as hard as I could. It didn't go as far as his, so I tried again. We threw rocks over and over, watching the ripples speeding outward and connecting with each other. I threw with my whole arm each time, but I couldn't beat his. We should head home, Owen said finally. I reached down and picked up one last stone. I slipped it into my pocket. What will you write on it? He asked. Hope, I said. I can't believe you don't already have that one, Owen said, picking up another rock. I've always had hope. I didn't need a rock to give me extra, I sighed. Do you ever wish you could go backward? Not usually, Owen said, but that doesn't mean I don't miss some things. I couldn't look at him. I wondered if I was one of those things, but I was too afraid of the answer. If I could go back, I said, I'd go back to the day when you and I were at Pepe and Meme's house. Back to the days when you and I were at Pepe and Meme's house. I miss those days a lot. Owen nodded. Me too. I don't think I'd want to go backward for good, though. I'd miss some of the now things. But you wouldn't know about the now things because they wouldn't have happened yet, I said. Owen looked at me. Is school really going so terribly that you want to go backward? I lifted one shoulder. Well, no one has bullied me or pushed me into a locker or any of the other mean things kids do to each other on TV shows. Mostly, kids just ignore me. I looked down at my feet. It's harder to be different than I thought it would be, though. You'd think with all those kids it would be easy to make friends, but it isn't. It seems like most kids already have enough friends, and they aren't looking for any more. It might look that way, Owen said, but everyone wants friends. Remember that, okay? Okay, I said, though it didn't seem true. I do have a plan that might help. I'm going to ask Dad if he'll bring Lappy to school as part of my group project. I bet the kids will like him, and I'll bet the girl with the adorable rabbit, not just the new kid. I'll be the girl with the adorable rabbit, not just the new kid with red hair. Owen smiled. I hope Lappy brings some rabbit magic with him, like Pepe used to say. He remembered. I nodded. Me too. Pepe would have a story about Monsieur Lapin going to school, Owen said. Monsieur Lapin would sneak into the cafeteria and raid the salad bar. The lunch ladies would go to serve lunch and find the lettuce bin empty. I laughed. And no carrots or blueberries. I'm glad Dad let you keep Lappy, Owen said, though I knew the second I saw him that if the shelter didn't know where he belonged, he'd come back home with us. He grinned. It's hard to say no to you when you really want something. Dad didn't stand a chance. I grinned back. That's because Lappy belongs with us. Owen picked up his paddle. We should get back now. It's getting dark and I really do have homework. Did you want me to push you off? Okay. Paddling toward home, the sun was setting, reflecting in our upstairs windows. I aimed the bow of my kayak at the beach in front of our house and beat Owen home. That night, before I went to bed, I found Owen's rock on my pillow. He'd written, Rabbit Magic. So that's the end of the chapter for today, 4th grade. And for today, just enjoy the story. I'm not going to ask you to write about it. And tomorrow, I'm going to read 2 chapters.